Welcome to episode 12, A Dirty Dozen. I'm David Blair. He's Trevin Perez.
Let's do it. Wait, I did that backwards.
There you go. There you go. 12. We
Let's
put
go.
12. Well, not 12 yet until we finish this one, but we put 11 in the book so far, one to go. So I'm feeling good about it. How do you feel about it so far?
Oh man, I feel great. I think that it's given us a lot of opportunities to delve into different topics that is quite helpful to our audience, and also just create some social media content for us. I think that you've become a social media darling out there lately, and this is a good platform for us.
Yeah, I've got to get we've got to get the subscriber count up. We've kind of talked to the company that manages this for us, and that we know that likes aren't everything, although they make you feel warm and fuzzy. It's nice that people are out there giving a thumbs up and liking the content. But make sure you subscribe. So that's my plug early to make sure that we pick up the subscribers. So
Absolutely.
how's your well, it's a new month. We're already in October. We talked about it last week.
Already.
I mean, years flying by. So here we are in the last quarter, the home stretch of the 2024 real estate market. How do you feel about last month? I know you're with a new company, and you're getting some things done over there. So you're getting set up for the new year. Is that what you're looking to do in the last quarter?
Yeah, in so many ways, all of my efforts are devoted to bringing in sales. However, let's face it, with the limited number of days left in the year, you can't ensure that you're going to bring in more than you already have forecasted, whether it be listings or buyers already under contract or expected to be under contract soon with, traditional 30, 45-day closings. So I'm looking at it as, let's put our head down, let's just work. If it happens this year, wonderful. If it doesn't, we have to still put in the same amount of work and effort. So next year will be stacked well, right? Because as we said in our last week episode, this is a slower season with all the holiday days.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. So
Yeah.
right
How
now,
about you?
audience, Trevin is like looking at me like, stay on topic. We had a plan. Stay on topic. You're already off course. We have a plan. It's right here. It's right there on the screen. Right there on the screen. Look at it. Pay attention. So, yeah, same here. Same here. I think last month was pretty good. I've got some things that we're kind of working on this month. Some listings actually we took off the market. So
Oh,
sad for some of those. We weren't able to get those sold, but we had to make some business decisions with the seller to where we basically looked at it and said, do you want to continue? And if you do, this is probably the path of what it looks like, pricing, what type of offers you're going to get. Or we can kind of table this for a minute, maybe pick it back up after the holidays and see how things look from there. So sometimes that happens. Sometimes, obviously my goal, your goal is to always get the property sold, to find a buyer, the right property. But sometimes there's unforeseen circumstances that we just don't have control over. We can't control the market. We can't control the buyer activity. So sometimes you just hit the pause button and then just kind of reset. So we're going to do that with some of those. We'll pick back up, and I'm confident we'll get them sold next year. So that's where we're at. So first time home buyers is one of our topics that we're gonna cover today. So first time home buyers make up, what percentage would you say they make up of buyers?
man,
Any idea?
I would assume maybe 25%.
Yeah, yeah. I could say 30, but I would just be guessing as far as that
Yeah, same
goes. So,
here.
yeah. But no, it was a real question. I was wondering if you knew, because I didn't know what percentage of the market makes up first time home buyers, and it's something that you do have to kind of track. If you're on the listing side, you want to track obviously where those buyers come from. But the first time home buyers, we've talked about them in a couple of our segments over the last 11 episodes, and it can be tough. It can be tough for a first time home buyer because there's so many things that that they don't know about the process, that they don't know about, whether it's the financing, looking for homes. I think I've heard that when a buyer decides to buy a property, when they've, you sit down with your family and you said, okay, hey, we want to buy a home. From the time that they make that decision, studies show that between that time and when they actually buy something, the average is anywhere between 6 to 9 months. And they'll
Mm.
actually go through as many as, I think it's six to eight real estate agents. So that's a lot. I mean, that's
That's
really a lot.
crazy.
And when I say go through that, it's not, I don't think it's a situation to where they're going out and they're starting that whole process over. A lot of times when I say six agents, it could be they contacted a listing agent on the property. So, they had some interaction with them. Maybe they were already working with someone. If you make that connection, you have a good agent. I think you're probably going to stick with them as long as they're working with you. They're kind of showing you what you're looking for. But so that's what we're going to talk about today, is the process as far as how we get that started. So how do you get the ball rolling when someone calls you and they're a first time buyer, Trev?
Yeah, so let's add in the twist. The twist of this conversation is the new law related to buyer agent agreement,
Hmm.
because now buyers, for all intents and purposes, are on the hook for commission,
Yeah.
for that contract. So, I think that it makes for an interesting conversation, especially when you think about the stats you brought up in regards to possibly six agents being a part of one buyer's transaction or process to buying a first time home, which is crazy because now, I think that if a client were to contact me and it's on one of my listings, you know, there's the first position that I think of is that they can come and take a look at the home without having any representation, right? And you know, it's an unguided tour of the property, and more likely, open houses are going to be really effective for us helping that population, that pool of people who are not committed to an agent today, to take a look at a property. And I think that, it goes back to, I think more than anything, it's going to be an exciting time to really sit with those buyers and have a go back to doing more consistent buyer consultations where we can sit and go through something. Maybe it's on a computer or on a big screen TV monitor, and and kind of hammer through the process soup to nuts,
Hmm.
it's so that you're truly hiring me. This time around, it's not like oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're our agent, and then a month from now they're ghosting you. You know,
Yeah.
um, I mean, so I think at a high level, just from that perspective, because of NAR, I think that that's the concern. How do you pitch it?
It depends, I think, because there's so many different, first time buyers and how they get involved in the process. I think some of it is sometimes I think you're better off not knowing anything. But the biggest as a buyer coming in, because sometimes what's that phrase, you know just enough to be dangerous. If you know just very little, or you've heard things that you've picked up here and there, you just need to make sure what your source is. And the biggest thing I think is trust. You've got to be in a situation with the buyer where they trust that you're a professional and you're going to be able to guide them through the process, and that they trust what you're telling them, and you're giving them good advice on the whole process. With me, we get buyers from different sources. Sometimes they come through one of the advertising sites, like this week I got one through homes.com, free plug for them. So they you set up your profile on there. They contacted me as the listing agent, wanted to see a property. We do the standard thing, and everyone that's in real estate knows and has done this before, where are you working with another agent? Okay, are you pre-approved? You've got your list of questions that you're checking the boxes and going down and talking to that buyer, kind of pre-screening, kind of pre-qualifying the buyer, if you will. That's a service that you definitely want to do, especially if it's your listing. You've told that seller that you're going to bring in pre-approved qualified buyers. So it's a disservice, I think, if you're just contacting a buyer off the street or they call you and you're bringing them in, and you don't know whether they're working with another agent. You don't know if they're qualified. So that's the very first step, I think, is, are you working with another agent? No, we're not. Okay. Are you willing to work together? As you just mentioned, you've got the disclosures now in regards to who pays the fees. We have in our market a touring agreement that we sign. That's the first kind of trip out that basically says, we're working together. You don't owe me anything, but this is a touring agreement which allows us to go see these properties. If you decide that you want to purchase one, now we're going to go to that next level and say, okay, this is the compensation that I would be seeking if we can't get that from the selling side. And that's that's a different conversation. We've never had to do that. That took effect in August, mid-August of this year. So that's a brand new conversation. So that just adds one more layer of things that you have to do with a new buyer. But again, pre-approval, making sure that they're they're in the right loan, and we're going to talk about that in a minute too, as far as what kind of loans are the best, I think, for first-time buyers. And I'll share a buyer that actually had, the one that had contacted me, and what their thoughts were and what it looks like they may end up doing. But that's kind of my process, and then we'll go and get them set up on search portals through the MLS to where they're getting active information on listings, and then personally, I do a funnel. Basically, we start with I tell customers, we're going to start with a really wide net, and we're going to include everything in there. That's, give me your perfect wish list of everything that you would want in a home, the price, the bedroom, square footage, the location. Does it have a pool, no pool, kitchen, all of those things? And we're going to pull all that information in there. And then what happens through the natural process is you start to kind of narrow that down through price, the location, the square footage, all of those things start to kind of narrow that property down into, sometimes it's affordability, what they can afford. Sometimes it's location of where they want to be. And then it's funny. I think sometimes you look at what a customer or buyer tells you initially in regards to, this is what I want, and then you look back and at what you actually end up buying, and sometimes it's not even close. It's complete opposite of the spectrum. So what do you think?
Yeah, that's the funny part, right? Because, it doesn't matter if it's an engineer or someone in social, you know, medical or social studies type, like personalities wise, you could be the broad spectrum, and everyone will start off with, I know what I know from the standpoint of what I want. And as you're going through the window shopping of touring homes, or looking at, does this have a regular traditional taxes, or is this in a CDD, where it's more expensive, or how high is the HOA fee compared to one neighborhood over the other, or is this HOA have more than one HOA fee, a master HOA and then a subdivision HOA? And it's like,
Mhm.
when you go through all of the, you know, circle of options, they find out that they want something possibly bigger or possibly smaller, and it's just so hard to narrow down. And one of the things that I like to do when I'm going through this process with people is try and I like to do similar in the sense of, let's take a wide net of homes to search for. And I only do that because I want people to see that their budget needs to be more, right? Like, you need to see for yourself that
Mhm.
if you want this house, if you want a certain house that looks amazing, look at that price point compared to the houses that are priced at what you think you want to pay on a monthly basis and can
Mhm.
afford. Because I don't know about you, I know for us, we started at one price, and this is now, I don't know, my fourth or fifth primary residence,
Mhm.
outside of investment properties. And when we were shopping for this home, we started really small. And, the budget kept getting bigger only because our perceived need grew. And we're
Yeah.
just like, all right, we got to find more money from somewhere else if we want to try to accommodate, maybe extended family,
Mhm.
um, or having space above the garage, or how big your garage is, right? So it's like, it's ad nauseum. And I almost feel like we have to be therapists,
Mhm.
because in our role, we're just there emotionally trying to support the buyers in this example. So it's just a funny process, right? And I think the bigger point of our conversation today, I feel like we're leading down, is finding that right home, how to prioritize, what they need versus what they want,
Yeah.
which is like the biggest piece here.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always it's isn't it always the way though that what you want and what you can afford, sometimes those just don't line up, for you,
Yeah.
in regards to that. So that's what I see most often is that you and every buyer, it's not unique to one buyer. It happens all the time. Every buyer comes in and says, okay, this is what my budget is, but I'm not finding that, I'm not finding that home. So sometimes there's some, if you're a good agent, which I feel we both are, you can work through that. You can navigate through that. Maybe you go out and instead of getting a turnkey home, which we're going to talk about a little bit later as well, a turnkey home, maybe you get a fixer upper. Maybe you go out and you find something that needs a little bit of work. Not so much that you can't get financing for it if you're doing that, but just something that needs a little bit of elbow grease. You could go in, you could repaint, you could kind of make it your own, put some sweat equity into it, and get a little bit, of what you want. As long as it's in the location that you're looking for, the home itself meets your needs as far as the size and bedrooms, baths, that sort of thing. You can paint, you can do those updates, to a property over time. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing like being able to, I'm sure, going right into the home. It's turnkey. Everything's exactly the way you want it. But I've done both. I've built new construction homes, and I've taken on renovation homes to where I've renovated. To me and for me, I think that renovation process is a little more satisfying. I think because you look back at what you started with, and you look at what you have at the end when you've put that sweat equity, you put those days, weeks, months, even years of time into that property, and what that property has become. And those are the gems, I think, in our market, where you're buying that property at a good price, a good value, and you're doing some of those things on your own, that allows you to get some equity, in the property. So that's that's my thought as far as that goes. The loan process. I know we're going to talk about the loan process. So I had this customer this past week, came through homes.com on one of our listings. She came to me and she was going to be using grant money. So grant money it varies according to state location. Sometimes you have to pay that back. Sometimes you don't. She was looking at a grant program through Bank of America that was going to give her, I think, up to 15,000. She didn't have to repay it, but there were stipulations on the property, in that regard. So we started taking a look at it. We actually found a conventional loan product that would pay the 3% down. She would come up with her closing costs, or she could actually ask the seller to pay concessions towards that, and really get into this home with almost no money. No money down, with the exception, of course, of your good faith deposit. So I think it's going to be a good situation for her as far as working out, what she wants. Sometimes credit challenges pop in there, and that affects obviously what your rate is. So talk to me a little bit about the loan process and how you work the new buyers through that approval process.
Yeah, I'm having some conversations now with a couple of buyers, and we're looking at the idea that the mental roller coaster of, I want to put more down versus a lower percentage down. And, but the reality is your savings on a per $1,000 basis of extra down payment money might equate to something insignificant, right? Depending on the interest rate, $5, $10 a
Mhm.
month in a reduction. And so it's like, all right, come on, guys. Is it better for us to go the route of a 5% down strategy on a conventional loan if you qualify because your credit is better on a conventional with 5% down, or are you a little bit more strapped cash wise and you need to do a 3% FHA down? Now, granted, You do have extra fees from the insurance associated with FHAs, but it's like you got to pick your poison, right? Like a lot of people, you deal with the buyer trying to go through the reality of, all right, I'm going to pay this off in 15 years, or whatever, right? They're going to switch it to like paying every biweekly. And I don't know
Mhm.
if you have buyers that do that, but if people
Sure.
love talking about, it's almost like a Dave Ramsey strategy, I think.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think he co-signed on it, or someone did in that financial universe of
Mhm.
like doing biweekly paying to help with reducing the interest overall on the loan. Um, so, I just base it off of, okay, if you have enough cash flow, is your cash better set aside so that we can, or you can do some remodeling of the home? Let's touch it up, maybe put a fresh coat of paint on the walls, maybe change out appliances or put a fence or a deck up, right? Like,
Mhm.
how do we put your stamp of approval on the house before you even move in? And so I work with a lot of contractors who I would incorporate into the buy process so
Mhm.
that the buyers, as they're kicking around ideas or they are pointing negative fingers at the house, I'm like, okay, let's be realistic, right? That carpet can be ripped up and removed, like, in no problem, right? um so let's not worry about the carpet, let's not worry about the paint color. Yeah, it's hideous, but let's see
Right.
beyond the paint and see, like, do we like the bones of the house? Like,
Mhm.
is this something we could see ourselves living in for 10, 20 years?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how on the loan side of
Mhm.
the process, I try to say, if we have the cash, I always
Mhm.
lean toward, let's keep it so we can make some improvements later. And that's my
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. So her situation was, she had the money, she had down payment money, but she just thought it would be easier um, if she could just hold on to that, her liquidity, and kind of keep that cash on hand. Which there's certainly a train of thought for that. It was interesting there. You mentioned insurance. So certain loans have um, uh, mortgage insurance. A lot of loans carry that.
Yeah.
So the difference between a conventional, for example, and an FHA loan is that FHA loan has PMI, and it doesn't go away. It used to, but years ago they made that change to where it's always going to stay on there. And we were explaining that process to her. The lender and I were talking. We had everyone on the speaker call, and she said, "Oh, was that insurance that protects me on the property?" And the lender said, "No, it's not. It doesn't protect you at all. It protects the lender if you default on the loan. That's what that's for, and it's going to stay there for the life of that loan. So if you have that loan for 30 years, you're going to pay that for 30 years. Whereas a conventional loan product allows you to, once you have 20% equity, then you can go back and you can ask them to go ahead and drop that. And it can be pretty expensive. I've seen it as, in some cases, a couple $100s per month, that you're paying. So, if you can, I do think that there's a lot of buyer friendly things about the FHA loan. That is a loan designed for first time home buyers. But the conventional is starting to catch up. It seems like with some of the features of that loan. I think the biggest of what I'm seeing still is the qualifying as far as credit scores, where the rate ends up at, those sort of things. The FHA is going to be a little more lenient on if you've got some credit challenges than what a conventional, loan product is. And then maybe maybe you start with the FHA and then you refinance down the road, into a conventional loan to where you can, build that equity, drop the PMI. But even in that scenario, you're still paying closing costs again when you refinance. So that's something you're going to have to, determine, make a business decision depending on how long you're actually going to hold on to that property. So if you hold on to it longer, then it maybe makes sense. If you're not, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
So when you
And
when you
let me
go
let
ahead.
me jump in real quick here. And oh, by the way, to your point about FHA's leniency, you can buy a house if you've had a bankruptcy. You
Mhm.
can buy a house if you've had a foreclosure.
Yeah.
You could even buy a house with credit as low as, at least back then, or at least what I've seen, a score of 625.
Mhm.
So you have a lot of flexibility to buy a house on an FHA loan, whereas conventional just would not bite on those issues if it's not
Yeah.
been a very long time.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point because and sometimes you do, you run into some challenges that can affect you down the road and your ability to, obtain a mortgage. I think, and I'll stick with this. I've said this over my years in real estate. When a first time buyer calls, they're excited. Naturally, they're excited. Especially if you've been renting for a while and this is an opportunity to buy a house, you're really excited. You want to go out there and you want to look at houses immediately. The first thing you should do, and I think you'll agree, is get the financing piece taken care of. Go ahead, get the pre-approval done. Get the budget set up to where, okay, this is, I have my down payment. This is how I'm going to get it. Do I need closing costs? If so, know that going in. Get a game plan together before you just run out and just start looking at houses. Because if not, you're going to go out, you're going to see a house, you're going to, oh, I absolutely love it, and maybe you can't qualify. So
Right,
get a
right.
good game plan together in advance of doing that, and you'll save yourself a lot of time. So my question to you, I kind of know what I do. If someone gives me a budget, and let's say, for example, they say, okay, I'm looking for a home up to 250,000, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,300 square feet, something like that. If they tell you 250 is their pre-approval range, do you show them properties that are over that $250,000 threshold?
No. And I don't even take them out.
Yeah.
I will spend some time on a computer and go over the process of where pricing is today,
Mhm.
because in our market, I would gander that there's not too many cities in Florida that even have that price point for a
Yeah.
decent home. Of 3 bed, 2 bath, 1,300 square feet. That's
Mhm.
in fairly decent condition and not like a flip.
Yeah.
250 is just non-existent.
So let me play devil's advocate because I used to do the same thing, because it didn't make the way I looked at it, it didn't make sense to set up the buyer for failure and going out and looking at a property that they can't afford. Now, what I have done is I've looked and I've said, okay, properties within this area are selling anywhere between 2 to 4% of what they're listed at. And if that's the case in that kind of market, then maybe you can go above that range 2 to 4%, or whatever that list to sell ratio, that variance is in there, but not crazy. So you're at 250. Maybe you go to 260, somewhere in there. If I'm seeing in the market where it looks like, hey, we could probably negotiate that 250 down to 240. So maybe at 260 we could bump it down 10. I've done that. Now, what I don't do, and I've had done to me, is I have had agents that call up and they say, "Hey, I've got a customer that is looking at your listing on XYZ Street. It's priced at 300. Do you think your seller would entertain an offer of 270?" Um, and that's a big hit, but we're in a market, depending on what's going on with that listing. We're obligated always to take that back to the seller and say, hey, they inquired about the property, but this is where they would be. Are you interested in that? Would that be something that you would, could possibly work with? And then if they say yes, great, we proceed with the showing. But if not, we don't. And just that's in an effort just to not waste anyone's time, buyer, seller, or agents that are involved in that transaction. So that's good to know. That's what I try to live by, I guess, as far as staying within that range, and then you can't really go wrong. So the kiss, marry, kill segment. Have you anything else on first time home buyers? We exhausted that yet?
I think we did. I think we did did a good job of covering a large space of that. The only other thing I'll just add before we move on is HGTV used to have a program that with the Property Brothers out of
Yeah.
Canada,
Mhm.
and they would do this segment, which is similar to a lot of what we were talking about, which I just loved, where a family would come in and say they want to spend $500,000, and the list was daunting. And
Yeah.
then he would show them, the realtor side of the brothers would show them what $500,000 would get you in that city with a good
Yeah.
school zone for 500 grand. And
Yeah.
oh, no, he forget the 500. He would show you a house he knew you would want. And then
Mhm.
you're like, oh my God, you're salivating. You're in so much love and passion about this house. And then you find out it's like the list price of this house is 800 grand. And the buyers are like astonished. They're pissed off. They're like, what the heck? Why did you do that to us? And then he said, well, because what you want is not realistic.
Yeah.
So now let me show you what is realistic in your budget. Right. He got there, he gave them the gut punch, and then
Yeah.
he switches them over and shows them this like house that needs some love in it, and it's at their
Mhm.
budget. And
Mhm.
then they go into the meeting room and they do the visual design on the computer and say, this is what 500 grand will get you. Great
Mhm.
school zone, this, that, and the other, but 500. And you're like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm sold, and then you're dealing with some creative
Yeah.
maybe 203B style loan, which includes remodeling and construction. But
Mhm.
I love that show. So I just had to bring it up in this episode.
That's cool. Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
So Kiss, Marry, Kill segment today. So Kiss, Marry, Kill, we've got, what do we have? We've got three topics. We've got starter homes that are in up and coming areas, good potential, may need some upgrading, single family homes in established neighborhoods, and then condos with high HOAs. So we're kind of all over the board with that. So Kiss, Marry, Kill. You want to go first? You want me to take a stab at it? Literally.
Yeah. I'll jump at it while I got the mic. Um, I would say that whoa, I'm like, that's interesting. Anyway, I assume that you can still hear me. So we're having some
Yep,
technical difficulties here at the studio.
we're good.
Well, I would start off with killing condos with high HOAs.
Yeah.
Condos with high HOAs are ridiculous, especially here in the state of Florida with the
Mhm.
governor signing off on rules about increasing the budget on how much savings they have in their
Mhm.
budget and requiring more expensive inspections on the property.
Right.
So that's an automatic kill. I would kiss the starter home in upcoming areas, and I think that it depends on who the buyer is. If that's where their appetite is for their family, or maybe they don't have a family, and
Mhm.
maybe they don't mind a starter home like that, right? So I would do a kiss there. I would definitely marry the single family home in a established neighborhood,
Mhm.
and put all my eggs in that basket because I think it's going to give the most appreciation. And man, I'm going to cut off there because I just want to make sure you can still hear me.
Yeah, yeah, loud and clear, loud and clear.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Cool.
so I'll jump in. So Kiss, Marry, Kill. So Kiss, I would kiss, just a little change up. I would actually kiss the single family homes in established neighborhoods. It's a solid investment. It's kind of the old tried and true. You kind of know what you're getting in that. Um, the marry, I think because marriage, I think of long term investment, if you will. And that would be for me would be the starter homes that are in up and coming areas with some good potential because I bought a home back in 2012 that was in a an area that was really up and coming in Volano Beach. That we bought it as a pre foreclosure, and that area was kind of a sleepy little beach area. That was like right in between Jacksonville, Atlantic, and Ponte Vedra Beach, kind of mixed in there, a little small area. And that place actually, I mean, it just blew up. I mean, we put about 50 or 60,000 into that property. Ended up selling it for double what we invested in it. The sad thing is that someone else came along as the market continued to improve and sold it for almost three times what I sold it for. So I keep getting those stabs from Zillow where they send me the update of, oh, this is what the property's worth. You bought it for 280,000 back in 2012. It's worth 1.5 million now. So, but it's not my house anymore. So, but that I think that's a good opportunity sometimes to pick those up and coming areas. And kill is obvious, the condo with the high HOA fees. I think, and what I'm always told in regards to the HOA fees is that they're mainly driven by the insurance rates, especially here in Florida, because you're paying for the fact that they have very little in the way of getting insurance on property. I think Citizens is probably one of the only I think games in town that's actually insuring properties that are located, in a beach area, for example, and condos themselves. With the new, we talked a few episodes back about the SIRS, that inspection, that structural integrity review survey, where they are coming in because of that collapse in Miami, and they're making sure that these condos have the reserves in place to update as they need to, because that property in South Florida obviously failed several inspections, and apparently they just didn't have the money to go in and update that property. So that's where I'm at with it. So that's all I've got for today. I think we nailed it. Dirty dozen. I mean, right on the button.
That's right. That's right. Congratulations. We made it past 12 weeks.
Exactly. Well, as always, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your time, and we would appreciate you subscribing. We hope that we're putting out good content. We know we're putting out good content. We're being modest, but yeah, tune in next week and have a good week.
Take care.